Jose Berlanga joins me again. You can learn what he is up to. Head over to joseberlanga.com. That is going to be a clickable link in the show notes. We're going to be talking about not only going back in time and talking about Jose's history and how he got into real estate investing, but how he developed a business and how he operates it. And this is going to be a great conversation. I really appreciate you coming back, Jose.
Hey, Jack, it's great to see you again. Thank you so much for having me in your show once more.
So we're going to start things off. Jose has done an insane job in the fact that we typically talk about finding your market and developing in your market, but you've done you've kind of changed the script a little bit, and you kind of created a market for yourself, especially in Houston's inner city. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that came about?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're right. We created a market, although back then I think when we started the business probably was a little bit easier. I do have to admit that the market has saturated itself in so many different ways in just about every area, but there are still ways to innovate and come up with new ways to find these opportunities. There's a big irony as to how we started what we started. Our the niche market came about out of making sense of two things. One was, where can we build a product that's affordable in a good location, inner city wise? And the only ones we could find were transitional neighborhoods that were not appealing. The only areas where we could build something that we were comfortable dollar wise were these, let's call them, for lack of a better word, scary neighborhoods back then. They were just forgotten, dilapidated, abandoned areas of town as people had migrated to the suburbs. And that was one part of the decision in inventing, let's call it, this new sector. The other one was fear. This is an incredible, and I'm thinking out loud, trying to transport myself to those moments back when we decided to venture into some of these neighborhoods where nobody was building. And we were more concerned about building in the areas where everybody else was building than in building in an unproven market. Shocking, perhaps, but that made more sense to us. We didn't want to compete with the public companies in the suburbs. We didn't want to compete in the high end product where everybody else was going after the same lots, same positions in established markets. So we went and started somewhere where nobody was building. At the time, it was in the Houston Heights, which now is one of the hottest neighborhoods. Multi-million-dollar homes are being built there 25 years later. But when we started there, we bought a property for $7,000 and change and built a small bungalow in what was not a proven market at all. Anyway, that is how we started, and that was the logic out of combination of fear and conveniently being able to build something where we could build a home and deliver it for right under $100,000. Incredible.
Yeah, that is incredible. It's what's interesting is, and I suppose maybe Texas doesn't have this type of thing, but a lot of developers would usually avoid some developing some of those areas just because of rent control and other type of affordable housing type laws. Did you run into any of those type of roadblocks with the city, state, or county?
When we started building, we ran into a lot of roadblocks, a lot of resistance, but not necessarily from the city or from government agencies for two reasons. Houston is not zoned in most areas. There is no zoning in most of the areas where we work and in Houston in general. And second of all, because we were building single family homes in single family areas. So we weren't trying to build a product. As a matter of fact, on the contrary, we were trying to go to areas that were more industrial and perhaps commercial, or a mix, and trying to better establish them as residential communities. So, so the resistance was not from code, from ordinance, from from city officials or anything like that. The resistance was more from neighbors. Interestingly enough, neighbors in the surrounding areas did not want new construction at that time, simply because they assumed that we were raising taxes. They were thinking that this builders, this companies were coming in to change things and increase their property taxes, and that was, and they were used to their neighborhoods the way they were, but they were single family areas, territories to begin with.
You also kind of took the approach that you kind of saturate an area. Like you kind of pick an area, and could you talk a little bit about that strategy and why you went that approach?
Being that we were such a small firm, we started basically out of nothing, and we had no employees. We had very little help. We didn't want to spread too thin. We wanted to learn an area. This was one of our philosophies. Let's learn one thing, let's become experts at it, and then we can start moving on to other areas. So we picked one type, one style of construction. At the time, it was kind of the cottage Victorian style, the older siding, very colorful trim, and something that matched the existing architecture and design of the area. And we stuck to that. So we began looking for properties in the surrounding areas, just close by, for efficiencies, for understanding of the market, for saturation of the market, and also because we felt that the more noise we made in some of these transitional neighborhoods, if we placed as much new construction within a small perimeter, within a small area, we would attract a better and bigger audience rather than just building one new house here and one new house there. It was already challenging to build in an area where the neighborhoods weren't quite established yet. So it made sense that there was a drawback, which was every time we went after the next lot or the next round of lots, they were more expensive because of the construction that we were doing. So we were making our own future land more expensive, and it just felt like the profit that we would make in one development, we would have to dump it into building or buying the next round of lots, and it felt like we weren't moving very, very fast. And, at that point, economies of scale came in, and building more and investing more. But at first, the first few rounds of homes, it just felt that whatever money we'd made, we just had to turn around and reinvest it on the next piece of land, and we were right back to square one. Just to put it in perspective, if we bought a first property for, $7,000. The next one was 15. And then the next one, similar, identical, let's call it apples to apples. And then they went to 30 and 50 and 80. And those same properties, just to put some context, these identical pieces of property today that we were buying under $10,000 are over a million, half a million, let's call it, depending on the block and so on and so forth. But they've become very pricey. So
Mhm.
it made sense back then, and apparently we were on the right. Uh,
Yeah, that's especially interesting. One of the things that really stood out there is the concept that you made the clear decision to go that level of focus, become an expert in that area before you decided to branch out into others. Would you say that that's kind of a core belief just in business in general? Is because I think as entrepreneurs, we get distracted by these object syndrome. We probably see more success if you just kind of focus on one thing, get really good at it before you consider the next.
Very much so. Perfecting your craft, picking one market, determining what you're after. It makes all the sense in the world, particularly in the early stages of your business. Trying to be all things to all people makes no sense when you're starting a company. And that's what we did. We focused on one market, on one product, on one neighborhood. And little by little, we perfected it before we branched out and moved on to other areas. And it worked out because many things happen and a lot of things start coming together. We were able to focus on our infrastructure, on our cost structure. on our quality, on internal systems and procedures. And every round of homes was better and more cost effective, better quality. It made a lot of sense to just go in that route. And when we decided to start moving on in different areas, it turned out that it became very easy to transition. All of a sudden, we realized that that fear we had of going out and competing in neighborhoods where other builders were at, we went in and beat them time after time in cost, in marketing, in name recognition, in quality and service, in all of the aspects, in speed, and we didn't even realize it, because before we started growing, before we started moving in every direction, we were able to really control internal systems and understand what we were doing. So this is a philosophy that applies to every, I would say, every industry, every segment of the market. You have to first do one thing, become good at it before you try to move on to other things. Otherwise, you lose focus. You really forget what you got in this business for, and you try to appeal to different people and start listening to too many opinions and try to start policing too many areas of the business, and it gets very confusing. I think most successful companies started with one thing, one product, one market, consolidated, and then little by little started expanding once they understood what they were doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we even saw that with Amazon, right? Like they started, like I'm going to date myself a little bit, but I mean, they were just selling books.
Exactly.
They get that figured out first before they started adding all the other products.
Yes, yes. If you're not in one philosophy that we had very clear was not going after profits right away. And I
Mhm.
think although we had many issues down the road um, that didn't allow us to really reach many of our goals, market and housing bubbles and financial issues in our market. But when you see very successful companies, they don't try to focus on monetizing right away. And that's what we did. We were not focusing on let's make the most out of every home. Let's just try to profit right away. No, let's first learn, let's understand, let's figure things out, let's perfect them, and then let's start moving on into understanding how to profit more. And I think some of the bigger companies and most powerful within their market, they try to do that at first. Interestingly enough, once you develop that that core, that understanding and that focus, the growth begins to happen a little bit more organically, a little bit easier. So once you build that foundation, it becomes easier than if you start trying to appeal to multiple markets.
Talking about appealing to multiple markets, did you ever have a situation where you tried to move up market a little bit, maybe tried to get into like higher value homes or more expensive homes, and early on, maybe you tried to do something a little too soon?
Yes. I think our problem was not trying to fix our model too soon or adapt our model too soon. Our problem was chasing the market. And that was a big mistake. What I mean by it is if you are in whatever, if you build a contemporary furniture and all of a sudden the trend starts going into more traditional styles and you stop what you're doing to move on to something else, you never know if that cycle is going to turn around and go right back to where you're starting. And that's exactly what happened to us. We were building entry level homes at the time for inner city, and all of a sudden we start seeing that pricier homes are selling very well, and that there's this buzz in the market about building $1 million homes. And so we felt that we were missing out, and we rushed to buy properties in the $1 million plus market, distracting ours, although it was profitable, but we felt that it wasn't profitable enough and that it wasn't efficient enough at the time, and that it was time to adapt and to adjust according to what we thought was happening out there. But in real estate, there's an issue. The cycles are very long. From the time that you locate a property and secure it, finance it, close it, designs, permits, construction, deliver, so on and so forth. It can be a couple of years. What is the market going to be in a couple of years? Nobody knows. So when you try to chase this circular motion, this moving target, and assuming that you're going to catch the wave is a huge mistake. So rather than rushing our business model, we try to change our business model instead of just sticking to what we already know. Because once we moved into the $1 million homes, guess what happened? It moved right back. All of a sudden, now the three, four, $500,000 homes were very busy. They were the right thing to have on the ground, and we didn't have enough of them because we had distracted it. And we did it again all of a sudden. I don't think we learned right away. We kept trying and testing things. Now, the entry level, the lower price points were inexistent. Nobody could buy a home back then, of course, under $300,000 in the inner city. So we try to start looking for properties and try to start investing a lot of time and effort. Again, moving from what we already understood. And by the time we got there and bought a bunch of properties and developed them and so on, it moved again. So I think when you start migrating or expanding your markets is because you already saturated yours. That's the lesson. There was more to be done within our market, within our areas, before we investigated or experimented in others. I think the only reason, the only justification to go and learn other markets is because you perfected yours, you're comfortable where it is, it's saturated. There's no more growth in that area, and you need to start chasing other areas. But if there's still things to be done where you are, there's no reason to rush it.
Just to remind everybody, we're talking to Jose Berlanga. You can learn more at his website. I'm going to have that as a clickable link in the show notes. If you found some value in what we're talking about so far, do us a favor, share this with one of your investor friends. It is the only way this show grows. And if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. So, Jose, you've been through the various market trends. I'd be curious to understand how you've built your team and what some of the lessons you've learned on that side of things as you've grown and developed.
Building a team is one of the most important things that a business can do, that a leader, that a founder of a company, it's really what is going to determine the future of your company. We feel at times that the concept, the capital, which are necessary, your ideas, your ability to run a company is what's going to make it or break it. And at the end of the day is your team. Unless you run a practice, unless you're running a business where it's all about you, it's about your services, your ability to deliver a specific service as a professional. If you intend to build a company, it's all about the people that you select, how you train them, the vision, the mission, the message, the purpose, and the objectives as to how you are able to communicate those to the rest of the team. That is crucial in building a company and growing a company. I made a lot of mistakes throughout, not just in this business in real estate, but in every industry that I've ever been a part of. I tend to rush the process of hiring people. I tend to wait too long by the time I hire someone. Every leader has their own style, their own personality, their own logic behind hiring. Some entrepreneurs hire too quickly. They want to build this infrastructure when they don't have the resources, they don't have the need, they don't know who to hire, they don't know how to go about it. Some others wait too long. I've done a little bit of both where I rush the hiring process because I'm desperate for warm bodies to take over responsibilities, and I hire them without clarity, without fully communicating what they're here to do and what are they here to achieve. I can really literally write a book about building a team, what not to do. Every little thing, there's a sequence of events, there's a world of things that can go wrong. And there's a little bit of luck involved in finding the right candidate, the right person at the right time for the right job. And I've made every mistake that's out there. But one of them, we've talked about hiring too quickly or waiting too long. But a bigger mistake is once you decide to hire, not giving the right message, not deciding and determining precisely what this person is here to do. And most of all, not making a quick decision once you determine that the person is not working out. That is perhaps the biggest mistake I've made in leading a team. That at some point we all make mistakes. Every business owner is going to accidentally hire the wrong person because it's incredibly difficult to be a perfect judge of character. Some people interview very well and eventually execute very poorly, and vice versa. Some people are shy, they're confused, they're timid in the whole process. They're not very good at communicating when under pressure in certain positions, but they turn out to be great assets to a company. So you can blame yourself very much for making the right selection right away. What you are to blame yourself for is that once you figure that out, make a choice and make it quick because it can drown your company. I've destroyed companies of my own because I kept trying to save my team instead of saving my company. I've done that over and over where I feel like I am the one that's wrong. I am the one that is not giving the right instructions. I'm not being patient enough. I'm not helping enough. I'm not doing things for them. And it's almost like doing your child's homework. You can help them, you can guide them, but they have to do it at the end of the day. And I've made the mistake of attempting to do the work of others, thinking that I am the problem. Eventually, over the years, I learned that when the position is not right, it's not right, and you have to change. As they say, you hire slow and you fire quick. I did the opposite for many years. So listening is the other one. Again, we can talk for hours about this subject, but when you hire and you build a team, you have to spend time learning and listening to the people that you're surrounding yourself with. You have to know that they truly enjoy what they're doing and they're not just solving a problem, which is to get a job. You want people that can take accountability, that can take ownership in what they're going to do. They want and need to do what you're offering, as opposed to just wanting to take an opportunity that presented itself. So anyway, it took me a long time. Little by little, I realized that this is a crucial part of any company's growth, and I failed at it many times, I must admit. So now I'm very careful as to how I grow and who I select.
Well, you seem to have kind of a recurring message in some of your stuff, whether it's a focus on your core market, a focus on your product, a focus on the roles that you're trying to fill. I mean, you really have to have some clarity around each piece of your business.
Yeah. In every sector, a lot of times we are not quite clear as to the direction that your business needs to take in order to grow and in order to succeed. We know what we want in our mind, but we don't quite have the route mapped out. And when we start bringing in people, we make that mistake. We bring people to assist us in random things as opposed to us knowing exactly what they're here to do. So something that is a fatal mistake is bringing people to shadow you. I've done that where you bring people on board and you don't need another you. The first step in beginning the journey of building a team is identifying what position you need assistance with. Not just somebody to help you in random things, assistant to do an array of activities. That is a worse thing that a startup in an early company can do. You need to identify one area of the business that is dragging you down, that is slowing things down, that bottleneck that is taking too much of your time, that you're not enjoying doing, that you're not the best at, and bring somebody to just take over that part of the business. Period. Be very specific, be very clear, move that thing, that monster aside that is taking away your effort, your energy, your clarity, and go so that you can go back in focusing on what it is that you do better. So never just be vague. And that's the message that I not just about hiring and training and building a team, but about every aspect of your business, knowing where it's headed. What do you want out of it? Are you building a profession? Are you building a practice? Are you building a company that you want it to be self sustainable? Do you want to sell it eventually? Do you want to keep running it for many years? If you don't understand what you want out of your business and what role you play, you're going to start driving and moving in the wrong direction. And years later, you realize that you built the wrong thing and you worked years to build something that ended up being something completely different than what you anticipated.
Yeah, so the message there, especially regarding hiring the right people, the right roles, that has been kind of my soapbox when it comes to, with Real Deal Crew, that we help people with operations and automations and adding AI to their real estate investing business. And that's essentially what we talk about, is the fact that we need to define exactly, just like you're hiring a person, we need to define this role and remove some of this redundancy out of your life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And identify where you're headed. Because another mistake that us leaders make is to assume that one sector of the company can build your business and turn it into a success, such as sales or a product or your team or your vision. And the truth is that a successful company needs more than one ingredient. There are different types of entrepreneurs. Some have a great ability to negotiate and close deals, but they're horrible on the administrative. I've seen those. Some are very artistic, but they don't know how to monetize. Some are very creative, but they don't know how to execute. And a lot of us go in thinking that that ability that we possess, that strength that we have within one area of the business is enough to be successful. And I've seen failure after failure because that person did not identify that there were other areas that the business required in order to move forward. And they didn't um, complement or supplement their strengths with the right people so that the infrastructure could move forward. And that is something that every entrepreneur needs to be humble enough to know what they know and what they don't know, and surround themselves with people that are able to cover those deficiencies.
Well, Jose, again, this is always such a great conversation to have with you. Before we jump into the rapid fire and close out this episode, should we have hit on anything else here today?
No, no, no. I guess one area that we should all really consider in the world of business as we wrap up the discussion. In speaking about some of the mistakes I've made, I'm one of those people that really tries to be honest about some of the things that I could have done better. And one important one is to try to learn the industry that I intend to participate in, or that I intend to make a difference in, because that's another confidence aspect that many entrepreneurs have, that we jump into areas because we think that the fact that we know how to put deals together and make things happen excludes us from learning the industry. Every industry has ins and outs, and they have areas that need to be understood before you start spending money, investing capital, bringing in people. So, if you have the opportunity not only to find something that you like, something that you enjoy, something that you believe you're good at, but learn about it. Maybe work for someone else, maybe try to start small, and once you feel that you have enough experience, then start expanding. So don't get ahead of yourself in the business world. Most of the successful companies, not all of them, because there are those rare experiments when somebody jumped into a new technology or a new industry and they hit it out of the ballpark in on their first attempt. But those are very rare. In general, the successful companies are people who work for someone else, learn the industry, and then figured out a niche market or a different or better way to execute something that they already understood. And
Mhm.
that's something that I recommend. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, because it's the odds, the probabilities are not in your favor when you do that.
Right. Well, just to remind one more time, it is joseberlanga.com. That's going to be a clickable link in the show notes. But if you're ready, then Jose, we'll jump into the rapid fire and close out this episode.
Sure.
What lie do real estate investors often tell themselves?
That this business is a way to make quick money, and it's not. This is a
If you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
relax, slow down, learn. Don't rush the process. Don't try to get there in one day. It's going to take a while. There are more years than you think. So pace yourself. I was horrible at pacing myself. I have ants in my pants and I try to do things too quickly, too fast, and try to get there right away instead of pacing myself and having better results.
Do you have a book recommendation or what are you reading right now?
I'm writing my third book, The Quantum Entrepreneur, my third book that I'm very proud of because I think this is my best one because I speak from the bottom of my heart about the good, the bad, and the ugly regarding entrepreneurship, being a business owner, starting things, building things. I'm writing down 40 of experiences, narrowing them down, of course. And I hope for that book to be out very soon.
And finally, what single process or tool have you implemented that has had the biggest time saving impact?
Well, I hate to get too technological, but I do believe that apps in every sense of the word are solving people's problems as long as you don't allow them to take over your brain. As long as you do your part, there are apps in real estate, there are apps in writing that are helping me with my grammar, with the way that the making a letter sound better. I do recommend that we take advantage of the good things that some of these apps have in real estate, locating properties, locating past records, preventing issues. Real estate apps, I won't name any specific ones, but I'm starting to use them. And before I used to spend too much time doing research. And I realize now that at a click of a finger, I can find information that's already available. Just don't let them take over your ability to learn and to improve your brain.
That's great advice. One last time, it is joseberlanga.com. That's going to be a clickable link in the show notes. But hope you'll consider coming back again sometime a little sooner this time, Jose. This was fantastic.
Thank you, Jack. It was great being here, and I really appreciate you having me in your show.